They were live. All right. And it's kind of weird. For some reason, I see myself on the left, not on the right, which is just really throwing me today. I don't know.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're on the left for me too. You got here first. That's why.
But sometimes I do get here first, but you always, anyway. If you guys are seeing this way, I'm on the left. Okay.
We don't need to talk about this. Never mind.
It's the little things. Wait, no, I'm old. I like things this way. I like.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious! Absolutely.
Well, we were just talking. We have so much to talk about, and we actually wish we kind of didn't, because there's some topics that just really deserve almost the whole show.
Yeah, for real. The whole for real. But
yeah,
we'll do the best we can, right? We'll do the best we can.
We can. There is a lot. We will give everything justice.
Yeah.
The speaking of which, just things moving really quickly, is the guys, take my word for it, the Grit report going to be released in early June, and then the Grit forum. Carly, if you throw that up. When we talk about the pace of change and we're measuring that quantitatively, what we do generally is measuring kind of qualitatively, right? We're just kind of connect dots to all this stuff. In this Grit report, the difference.
And this is the Insights Practice report.
This is the Insights Practice report. We 2 a year. The difference between last fall of the Business and Innovation report on key metrics that we trend every time, like business outlook, et cetera, and this one are massive. So it will put a lot of what we've been talking about in context. The Grit forum is where we sit down and talk about. We'll publish the report. Then we have the Grit forum. We'll talk about these things with our panels. Karen and I are going to tag team on the panels. That'll be fun and great. Right, Karen? We agreed on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think we did. I think we decided we were going to split it up.
The thing is, I don't think we have a real anyway, people yes, whatever we will get it done. We will tag team. We are a team, and we will get the best possible scenario in place for our partners. So,
absolutely.
For real,
but the discussion of the impact of the changes, it is significant. You guys need to get the report. You need to attend a Grit forum, because we have data that backs up everything that we've been talking about. And now as we move forward, it will just add more fuel to the fire. So
yeah, very cool. And I think we might as well plug while we're plugging, if that's okay. Yes. Carly, do you have an EU one also? So we are one of the reasons why our brains are in a lot of places is as Lenny's getting ready for the Grit forum, we are also in full we are less than a month away from our IIEX Europe event, so it's going to be just another one of those not to be missed events. And we're looking forward to welcoming all the speakers and all of the chairs and all of the attendees and all of the sponsors, and having another stellar event in Amsterdam. So thank you for sharing that. I think there's a code on the exchange. Yeah, there you go, Carly. Thank you. There's a code. Use the exchange. Is that exchange 30? The font is small for me. And get yourself a discounted ticket and come join us in Amsterdam. So.
Yes, and get the European perspective on all of these things that are happening.
Yeah.
All right, shall we dive in?
Yeah, we have to dive, and I think we really should start with this announcement from three. It's funny, three companies that have been in our ecosystem for a while. Rival Technologies and Reach 3, of course, have already kind of linked themselves, but now Angus Reid Group is a part of the Rival Group as well. So Angus Reid, who I wish I had pulled up the episode of the podcast or the CEO series. I don't remember. You just interviewed him pretty recently.
Last year, I think.
Last year. Oh, well, time flies, man. It's not okay.
It does.
Feels like that was a week ago. Anyway, so they now have one of the largest independent research firms with over 60 million in projected revenues. So so hats off for that kind of merger.
Consolidation. I think maybe it's better way.
Consolidation. Yeah, I was like, what do we call that? It's really
they're always linked. Yeah, but for this, so full disclosure, their client, on the Gen 2 side, but that they've always kind of were this way. That sample data, plus Rival, the proprietary data collection and those
Right.
solutions, and
Yeah.
then the service component of the full service with Reach 3, combining
Yep.
those into a data and technology driven service organization
Yeah.
is absolutely on trend with where things are going. So hats
Yeah.
off to them for going ahead and just putting it together and saying, yeah, we're all one big happy family instead of
I think it's
literally when you talk about the Reids, right? So one big happy family.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. I know, right? It's very interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting, we have another kind of acquisition happening, which is MSQ acquiring The Forge. And shout out to Danielle Todd, who is one of our chairs, who does an amazing job stepping up for us each time. She'll be at Europe also, and she was just in North America, and she's super helpful to us all the time. But I think there's something to be said. If you don't know MSQ, they're a kind of marketing communications organization, right? So partnering with The Forge, which is a strategic consultancy, innovation and strategy. And I just think that if you are a consultancy, this is a good time to be a consultancy, because all of these other things happening in the ecosystem are not going to be driving change unless there's that consultative view and strategic view of everything. So I think I just kind of look at these two and I'm like, good time to be in a consultancy.
I would agree. I think that this does stand out in the grit data as well, right? The technology's changing everything, process, right? We talk about that forever. We'll get more into it here, but human expertise is to tie it all together and make sense of it. Is still needed. But the business model for the consultancies are certainly changing. And this would be an example tying into into a broader spectrum. So we're seeing it all shift in real time in great example.
And we'll get to some of those technological changes, but we still have other kind of pairings and partnerships to dig into. So let's talk about a few of those too. You want to talk? I don't know enough about DataDiggers, but DataDiggers and Brainactive have teamed up. So now they have kind of an AI-driven research platform. In there. What else do you know about them together?
I mean, I know no shade on anyone. I would have thought of them as primarily kind of traditional field services type of companies. That's where they kind of grew up, but they've embraced AI. They're combining. I think they would probably still think of themselves as field services, but they're utilizing AI to improve the process, to make that incredibly efficient, in leveraging the two pieces of their capabilities, DataDiggers with sample and panel, and
which is what everybody, haven't we been talking about this too, which everybody needs to be doing. Like, think about where your inefficiencies are so you can be a smarter organization and use the tool or tools or whichever tool you can get. But that's absolutely the name of the game right now is boosting that efficiency. So cool.
Absolutely. And kind of related, Havas and YouGov, their data sharing partnership. So, leaning into the data assets that YouGov has to drive. Havas primarily a kind of marketing ad agency, type of organization, and leveraging those assets in new ways. I'm sure AI is behind that in some form or fashion. They didn't necessarily lead with it, but I'm quite certain that it's driving the Havas business. So.
And what I liked about this, not what I liked about this, that's not really the right thing. One of the things that made me say, when I was reading this press release, is this idea that this is not necessarily a new partnership, right? So this partnership, they said, I think they started to talk about their partnership a year ago, but they're basically, I think there's something very smart about communicating these types of partnerships, because lots of organizations have them, right? And they don't really talk about them very much. But what does this do? This puts them in front of us and makes us think about them and has us talking about them. And isn't that the work of PR? So it's no surprise, because they're Havas is a marketing communications company. So of course they have the engine in place to do this. And so does YouGov. Actually, we've seen that with recent YouGov activity. But they're really just, they collaborate on studies. And so if you have people that you collaborate with, leverage those dynamic relationships, because it says something if you maintain a partnership over time and you have that that kind of longevity, that becomes a benefit to people to learn about. Like, we've been partners for more than just one round or for more than just one study. Like, show us the depth of the relationship and the partnership, because we can glean some information from that.
Yes, and it shows, the era of synergies maybe is kind of where we are, right? How these relationships unlock. I always talk about the Reese's cups, right? So this is one of those Reese's cup scenarios where they're creating something new by leveraging the two things. I think we'll see more and more of that. Another one, VideoAmp and Captify. Little more interesting here to link ad exposure to search behavior, which starts getting to attribution.
And there was a quote in this that says, by directly linking ad exposure to real world search behavior, we can now show how campaigns generate interest and intent, which, if anybody pays attention to search, it's all about intent, far earlier and more accurately than traditional brand lift or conversion metrics. So not everybody, is necessarily in that business, but if you're an advertiser, right, and you are trying to pay attention to that, kind of what that user intent is, or buyer intent. I just thought this one was really interesting. And then, of course, in this article that you had shared, I think, about advertisers increasingly turning to Nielsen alternatives. So there's an article, was it eMarketer? I think it was an eMarketer. Anyway, sharing results of a study where 85% of U.S. brand and agency leaders are rating some of these alternatives to Nielsen as, as effective or sometimes even more effective. And those are people like VideoAmp, ComScore, iSpot TV. I think that's interesting because it's the idea that it used to be like, Nielsen was it, and not that they're not dominant, but there are other ways to measure. Right. And anyway, I just thought that was really interesting too. So for all the advertisers listening, if you see yourself in that data, you
get the fragmented ecosystem. Ad delivery now is across, 1 million different channels and networks, and as people personalize all of are you on TikTok or whatever, right? Combining all that is very challenging for any one person or any one organization. So it does require a lot of different solutions to try and capture more of a holistic view so advertisers know where their money is being spent well. So and there isn't one single indicator of success or effectiveness. Now you might be effective in one area and not in another. So you're going to have these fit for purpose solutions. Yes. And as when we get to the big stuff, the era of personalization, we ain't seen nothing yet. So, but we're about to. Yeah. All
right. Well, let's share. We have like 3 product launches that I think are worth talking about this week, and then we'll get into the heavy tech. We'll do our stretching before we get into that. But why don't you? This was very interesting to me. So we have an article that we'll share on Axios. But it's called Generation Lab. It's a new platform, Verb AI, letting Gen Z users monetize their own personal data by creating digital twins for real-time queryable insights. So it's making this shift from traditional polling to behavior-driven research with participant compensation. New model to look at. Gen Z is like, sure, I'm in there. If they can earn, they are willing to share their personal, look, don't just take my data, but they have some, autonomy over it, some command over it. And they're like, yeah, you can compensate me and I'll share. Very interesting model right there.
Well, absolutely. And that they're not necessarily, it's not about sharing for my time, because it's the digital twin. It is the avatar, the agent that is doing that for them. So they are monetizing their data via a agent based on a real person, real data.
So
and that's making money for them. So we've talked about these concepts for quite some time. Here we go. And of course, it's Gen Z that's doing that.
Of course. I actually love this. I love this for them, because you know what, with this, for them collectively as a generation, because they are the generation that is, coming to this place in life where they won't know another way of working or being or existing, as they are in this adult space. Like this is what it is. My daughter was just telling me this morning that she was looking at my daughter-in-law's phone, and on her lock screen, there's the link to ChatGPT. This is their way of life now. This is just what they do. It's who they are.
Yeah. And again, ain't say nothing yet when we get there. Let's, another great launch.
Put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that. You guys kind of, we want to get through this stuff, and it's important, but there's a whole other thing that we really want to get to.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Yes. Fuel Cycle, which we had spoken about recently, is they were kind of launched a whole new AI and agentic model for their interface, and now they've launched the FCUX, user experience research platform, still baked into kind of their agentic model. So they're expanding. When they acquired Get Curious, they've now expanded that out and are launching that as a whole other UX specific solution. So that's pretty cool. Shout out to them. Hey Marvin, another new entrant in the fully AI moderated interviewer. This is a little bit different. It's a voice tool, and it does IDIs at scale, is the way I would describe it. Because since it is a voice interview.
I just think it's interesting because it is the most it's like now all of a sudden it's like it's the most obvious use case. Like, yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. This is how we're working with with these LLMs is it's all your conversations can be I shouldn't say that. It's very easy for me to see this application as a qualitative researcher because it's it started with, could it do a discussion guide? Sure. Could it probe? Sure. Could we train it to probe? Yes. I mean, it's a very obvious use case. And I feel my heart goes out to qualitative researchers right now, especially who are younger in their career, earlier in their careers, as they're trying to navigate this space, because they haven't yet gotten to that strategic consultative level, right? They are trying to execute qual at a pace, where they're learning their skills at the same time as the machines are learning those skills. So that's who I really have a lot of empathy for, kind of the younger moderators who I really encourage to lean into usage of these tools and how they can fit into a portfolio that you offer.
Well, quant researchers as well, right? I mean, I wrote a questionnaire this week, first time in forever. And while I'm writing, I'm thinking, why?
I know.
Why am I doing this? I mean, it's only because I was working with one specific company that had, a capability I needed. That was traditional survey structure. And while I'm writing, I'm thinking, this is, I don't know that I'll ever write a quantitative questionnaire like
Not
this again.
From scratch. And I think that's one of the, there was a woman that I worked with a few years ago, and one of the things she always said, she was like, I just need to always see a draft, and then she can iterate on the draft. I just need to see the draft, and then I can say, oh no, that question's got to be worded this way. Like, she was a research director. Anyway, that was kind of her MO. She's like, I have to see the draft question so I can then say, right, I don't need this question, I need this question. And that is the leg up that we have right now, is you may not write the entire thing, but if you get a solid draft in place, then it's going to be way stronger than it could have been if you were just trying to piecemeal other questions that you have from other places.
Well, sure.
Leg up. Why wouldn't you?
But what I was thinking was, yes, but I was thinking more of form factor. It was, an online survey. And look at, hey, Marvin, well, the reality is, I more likely could have accomplished the exact same goals utilizing a platform like that, from a form factor, which takes us to let's so this OpenAI acquires Jony. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I'm going to say Jony Ive startup.
Jony Ive.
Jony Ive, is that it? Okay, thank you.
I don't know for sure, but that's how I would. That's
the guy that designed the iPhone. Right.
The guy that designed the iPhone. Just leave it at that, in case you doubt his credibility.
Yes. $6.5 billion acquisition for a 1-year-old company that they already had a stake in to create new AI hardware devices. And that's the takeaway. It is OpenAI working with a design expert to create the next generation of consumer-based.
A design expert who anticipated, who created the iPhone, anticipating anticipating what we couldn't even see before we realized how much we needed the iPhone, right? Like we,
Absolutely.
it was a design that was very user friendly, like ahead of what anticipating user needs, giving us tools that we didn't know we wanted.
Right.
I think that's what stands out in this concept is anticipation of devices that we don't even know necessarily that we want. And then link that with these other two things. And I'm like, we are going to be in a frontier of devices, people.
We are. Well, let's hope it's because what I don't know about you, but I'm reading this and we're thinking, especially that when their deal was to, so he created the iPhone and now he wants to destroy the screen. So that is their intention, right? Is to decouple us from the screen. Now they've been very hush hush, right? And there's people said, oh, it's going to look like this, and who knows what it's going to be. But what I think is a safe bet is that it'll be a new technology, again, attempting to change the form factor of how we interact with technology, driven by a very sophisticated AI that is absorbing tons of information, and we'll get into that, even more in a minute. And so look at the Hey Marvin thing, right? Yeah. So if we're decoupling from screens, we are likely moving back from an insight standpoint where we're just expanding the types of data that is available without ever needing to ask a question at an individual level.
Yeah.
And then when we do ask a question, it is likely going to be highly individualized, AI driven, and voice driven rather than solely graphically or screen driven.
Yeah.
And guys, they're planning on shipping this stuff next year.
They're moving fast. Moving fast.
And the amount of money put into this is not some, it's like when they did the pin last year.
Yeah.
That was that was the experiment, just like the Google Glass. That was an experiment. That was to kind of see. So now they're ramping up full production.
Right. So we've got two, and Carly can share just sort of both of these. Both Apple and Google are also starting to share their glasses, right? Their smart glasses. So, obviously Apple's will be AI, Apple kind of in the Apple family. So they have smart glasses that are going to launch in 2026. Google's are going to be Android XR smart glasses. So they're talking about that. So what I keep thinking, Lenny, because both those, and then in partnership with kind of what I when I was leaning into that talk about that Meta gave about the Meta Ray-Ban glasses, the idea is non-intrusive, seamless, it's happening. You can hear it. There's translation involved. There's photography involved. There's AI involved. So think about the next level of tech there. And I just keep thinking earbuds. Like I go right to secret agents. Like secret agents used to have the ability to hear things that nobody else could hear, and it was totally invisible. I'm like, what is coming if it's not screen based?
Right.
What is the tech that consumers will be able to use, and how will this impact society? Of course, is one conversation that we can always have, maybe offline, but also as researchers and people who study human behavior and then also try to influence human behavior and leverage human behavior for research purposes. What's all that going to do? Because if we now have many kinds of glasses and that lowers prices to get into more people's hands, that reality is coming, I think, much faster. If they are all racing, there is a reason.
Right. Well, and the OpenAI thing, they've especially said this is not a wearable. The only thing they've talked about is it's going to be something in your pocket, and you're going to take it out and set it next on your desk.
I know.
Whatever that is. So,
a little friend, is it going to be a little friend?
Don't know, but to
your AI friend, maybe it's a little AI friend.
Yes, but to your point, and we go all the way back to the beginning of the grit. A tipping point was reached, and it was reached between fall of last year and spring of this year. We quantified it in the insights industry via grit. We see it now with this acceleration of next generation technology, and then that brings us well, let's talk about the Google thing, and then we talk about the UBS, because Google had their big I/O event this week, and they unleashed. I'm gonna say it. Here's the first time the level of what the fuck with what they released, was mind blowing.
I know. And there were a couple of videos every time they showed up on. So what we're talking about, just Lenny and I,
first F-bomb,
you and I tend to like jump ahead and say, can you believe it, without giving the backstory. So they have these tools that are, and actually I'm just realizing, like, I don't have like the name of the tools, but it was like, basically allowing you to use voice in your. So not only has video production gotten, gotten more VO
solution. Yes.
Which is right. Now they're speaking. So the video clips, every now and then somebody has shared them in my LinkedIn newsfeed, and they not only do they look very human, these, digitally created human beings, but now they're speaking.
Right.
And if you're looking at them and it's a short video, there is no way you can tell that that is not real. And I was sharing them with one of my sons who's home right now. And he was like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. That's so creepy. Like, he can't believe the level that we've gotten to with integrating the voice. The video quality has gotten there. Now we're integrating voice. There is no way to tell that this is AI generated, fit for purpose, right? Maybe this isn't a full-fledged movie, right? But if you do this in such a way that creates a video short, it could be.
Think of the impact on advertising. So you and I shared, not something we would share here, but it was some guy put together, and he said, I make commercials. I used to do this for $500,000. I did this for 500, right? And it was a fake commercial using the limit of, there's still a problem with it. Well, not problem, but it's still limited to like short segments. But they have commercials. Commercials are often designed that way, right?
Yeah,
the vignettes, and $500. Now think about it from a research standpoint. Well, one step back. If you can create an ad for $500 in a few minutes, are you really going to test that, or are you just going to do live A/B testing all the time? Right. So there's a question. Or in that type of technology, are you going to, in a focus group, or are you going to allow people to come together and in real time optimize and create?
The ad costs cheaper than the focus group, for heaven's sakes. Like,
for real. I didn't think about that. You're exactly right. So
that's not going to do that. Like, really, that's,
right.
that's.
But think about the further fragmentation, right, of this. So from a media standpoint, we have this incredibly fragmented. This type of technology, when the only limiting it right now is processing power and bandwidth. That is it. So that's going to be addressed. It is being addressed now. So think about the possibilities of customized content. I'm sorry, Hollywood, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes right now, right? I mean, the ability.
But it's not. But that, I think we're still a little bit away from that. But
I don't know.
Point about the personalization coming full circle. Think about the email that you may get with let's put Pepsi out there, right? And and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Lenny, and now your email is talking to you, and there's a person on the screen talking to you about, wouldn't you like to share this? Or actually, Coca-Cola. I'll use Coke because we were just talking about this. My son had a Coke at dinner last night, and he said, "Oh, here, G, this is for you," and handed it because it said, sis. It was in that ad campaign packaging campaign where it's like share with a friend or whatever. Yeah. So like, imagine you get an email and it's like, from Coke saying, "Wouldn't you want to share this with a colleague?" And now, but they're talking to you. Your email is talking to you with this video snippet in a personalized way. So that's game changing for personalization and customization, which is what you were alluding to kind of at the beginning of this is, that's,
but also media and entertainment. I mean, all of that, all this technology leads us to your point, right? A data driven, if it has the right data feeding it, that's still so the data requirement is still going to be there. It's only going to grow to drive infinite possibilities of personalization, whether it is for advertising or marketing, adaptive surveys, right, adaptive research, or media consumption, right? I mean, it's choose your own adventure on steroids. So, and what does that look like from a marketer's standpoint? I think it still goes back to that first point around data, which says right back to the research industry. The better off we engage, have mechanisms to engage with consumers in high quality ways to build things like Generation Labs has built, those types of solutions, then the better off we are going to be to help drive that, because data is the oil.
Right. And if you have a segmentation study, right, if you've segmented your market and you understand your personas and you can speak to them, right, and kind of dissect your market and then send them custom, personalized is one aspect, but customized for a segment also. And you go back to that $500 for that one video, how many people could you mail something to, right? Or reach with something that's very customized for a segment even, and you're doing it for not a humongous budget. Suddenly, all of that segmentation feels very much like, oh, wait a minute, there's a use case for this segmented population that I can actually afford to act on.
Right.
For not just the big players.
Right. Well, Mr. Lynch, hello, Mr. Lynch.
Mr. Lynch.
He points out the tech is cool, but a well-done bad story is still junk. Creators will be unlocked and empowered. I actually agree with that. I think that more people will be more creative and able to do stuff. However, now I haven't tried this term out in a while. Dystopian hellscape component of this is, you think about that level of personalization driven with a bad agenda. From a manipulation standpoint, think about the algorithm on whatever your favorite social media platform is that is serving you nothing but custom short junk over and over again, which some would argue that it already does. Right. So we are in the brave new world. So these are considerations we have to think about as well, is that we see the possibilities of all of this cool stuff, and it's unlimited possibilities. It's amazing. We're entering like Star Trek world, right? But we could also go into Minority Report world very easily. And because walking through the mall and the ads personalized.
I don't know if our audience can pick up with this, but every now and then when you do that, I do get literally and physically deflated. I'm like, come on.
We have, because this is the bigger stuff. About this from business, but there are these big social, cultural issues that we have to grapple with, and that because it could be scary if we don't. And
I know our service to our listeners and our advertisers is, how can we help the marketers and the advertisers and the agencies and all of these people who are using the tools? We do not have to worry about all of humanity on this show. You can let us know. You can let us know if I'm wrong on that, friends. But I don't think you and I have to carry the weight of all humanity and where we're headed. We are not. What did we see? Linda Hamilton in The Terminator. What's her character's name? What was the character's name in The Terminator? I saw a video this morning, and it was like of her weeping. And like her weeping every time we take the next step. Right? We don't have to worry about everybody.
Good point. But I agree. I will just I'll tone myself back a little bit. We pride ourselves as an industry on having ethical frameworks on how we engage, for being the voice of the consumer. So when I bring that up, that's my intention, even though my weird sci-fi, personality takes it further. It is just trying to remind us that let's just stay grounded and thinking about what's best for.
Well, and whenever you take that step back, I can take a step back also with you. And the reality is, in the spirit of the voice of the consumer, before you execute on these things, you should talk to your consumers and see if they're okay with it. Like when I showed my 25-year-old son some of these videos, and he was like, nope, I don't want to see that. It's too weird. It's too creepy. It makes me uncomfortable. Yes. So if your audience would be uncomfortable, please don't do this. So kind of know who you're reaching.
That is an interesting point. Real quick, I just want to bring this up. My son is 14. And he despises all the AI stuff. He refuses to engage with any of it. It creeps him out. He thinks it's dehumanizing. I've tried to encourage him, even Libby, we're trying to do a project together. I was like, well, look, we'll use AI and we'll do this. And he was like, no, I'm going to hand draw this. Right. It was like a graphical thing. So there's an undercurrent potentially generationally that we should recognize. We think all this is,
Pretty
so cool. But they're not everybody is going to necessarily feels that comfortable. So, we don't want to leave them behind. All right. Last similar thing, UBS. This was interesting. Deploying a lifelike AI avatars of its analysts using OpenAI Synthesia. So basically, you go to UBS and you want to talk to a financial advisor, and you're talking to an avatar.
I don't know how I feel about that one. I'm like, how do I feel about that one? Getting financial advice from an avatar. Maybe it's okay, but that's like one category where I'm like, I really want it to be a human being. But anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, and as we look at all this other stuff, Microsoft also they envision an open internet for AI agents. So their big conference was this week as well. Everybody had their big conferences, and so we have this infrastructure component like a Microsoft and a Google, that they're building. They're building the the walls, the infrastructure to enable this future to continue to expand. So there ain't no stopping it. And I don't know about you, Karen. I continue to think that it's happening faster than I thought it would.
Yeah. I think it's yes, and it's now been a few years. It's like 2.5 years since generative AI hit the scene. So maybe it's faster, but also
maybe it's accelerating.
Not so much. Huh?
Maybe it's accelerating.
I think it could be accelerating. I just think that it's proliferating everything. And I think that's maybe, at first the idea was this will affect our business life, but now we're just seeing it permeate, across all of the sectors of our lives. Again, from our personal use cases and our business use cases and our, kind of like how products will be marketed to us. And it's all encompassing of us. And I think that's probably what everybody's feeling. Is it certainly has accelerated. It is going to continue at this rate.
Yes.
We have never had our heads in the sand about that. We have been very clear about that. This is, it's going to continue to accelerate, and it's just, we're on the speed train. We're not.
I just thought maybe there'd be more inertial speed bumps, and I don't see those. I think we're just hitting and going over them. So, but anyway, we've hit our limit for today.
We sure have. But good to be here. We'll be back next week if you're in the U.S. I hope you get to enjoy Memorial Day. Here in the Northeast, the weather might not really cooperate. It's like you can see it out my window. It's just cold and glum, and
it's chilly here
on
too.
A weekend that's supposed to kick off summer. It's annoying, but hey, I'll still take a day to unplug, because I think I need it, and I know our team needs it too. So I hope for the rest of you all can unplug on Monday and enjoy the holiday here in the U.S.
Yes. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday, and I'll try not to be so. I'll try not to deflate you, Karen. So
you be you, Lenny. You be you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your level of acceptance of that. So.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll talk soon.